the Army pamphlet 700-48, which is procedures manual and other relevant guides.
But they don't do that. They don't follow their own rules.
They don't follow their own rules at all. And the other thing, too, that bothers me the most, and this has happened over and over again because they're doing this in the United States, just burning it, blowing it up, and whatever. Quote, radioactive material and waste will not be locally disposed of through burial, submersion, incineration, and destruction or place or abandonment. And they just do it continuously without any hesitation.
So really you have the nuclear weapons and nuclear power plant industry, and they're just seeding their waste everywhere that has a 40-plus million year half-life. People thousands of years from now will be being killed by this if we last that long as a species. Again, Dr. Rokke, what does it say? I'm going to warn PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. I'm going to put some images. We saw a doubling, tripling, now quadrupling of deformities in the areas where it was used in Kosovo, in Iraq, and in other areas. What does it say about the generals and the politicians and the companies that they know their kids are breathing this? They know they're breathing it. They know it's getting into the water. They know, and they just don't care. They wouldn't do this until the early 90s. What changed? What is the mindset of these people? But I'm going to be putting images of these deformed babies up. And then I want to ask you, Dr. Rokke, about fighting back against this, because you look at graphs of the use of DU, it's going up parabolically straight up, as you know. The good news is the Iraqis are now suing the U.S. for using this and not cleaning it up, as if you could clean it up. So maybe there's, talk about solutions to fight this.
Well, the other thing, too, is not only the Iraqis are bringing this up, and rightfully so, but the residents of Vieques in Puerto Rico also bringing this up. And then I just literally got, just right before we came on the air, uranium munitions, as you said, have been used extensively in contaminated Hawaii, Schofield Barracks on Oahu, and then Tokoloa training area. And the U.S. Army and Nuclear Regulatory Commission a few weeks ago said the residents of Hawaii have no standing to object or demand cleanup or medical care. And what happened here a couple days ago, CNN did a whole report on Vieques and how we thoroughly contaminated that area, caused all the medical problems, and walked away. And then now what I heard just a few minutes ago before we went on the air is CNN has now contacted the residents of Hawaii and said, okay, guys, what's happening? Do you need help? But you have to understand, the senior leadership in the Department of Defense and the U.S. Army and the Marines and Navy totally disregard the health and environmental effects. They do not provide the training. They do not clean it up after it's used. And then what happens is the men, the women, and the children are all affected. They can't get the medical care that they've earned because it's denied, delayed, and they die. Or if they do get in for medical care, which has happened personally to me and my guys right here in Danville, Ileana VA Medical Center in Danville, Illinois, they just deny any correlation. And if we get a doctor or somebody starts helping us, they immediately get transferred or fired.
Now, I want to say that I told them to just go online and type in deformed babies DU, and they went to mindfully.org, which is one I hadn't even looked at. I looked at major news sites, and these were so horrible, I told them to stop putting them up there. But if people want to go look at them, it's mindfully.org. I mean, it's just, and they admit it's causing deformities. I mean, this is so hellish that I can't even look at it.
Let's look at, you said about 911. Okay, 911 was black operations, but what is really horrific to me personally is the individuals that I trained from the New York Police and Fire years, before 911 to go and do emergency rescue on hazardous materials, nuclear, biological, chemical warfare, explosives. You have to understand the Army tasked me to train them, the New York Emergency Services Unit personnel. Those guys that went in there then got out and they became members of the New York Army National Guard 442nd Military Police Unit. They were then sent over to Iraq. They got exposed. They started getting sick. The children they were conceived were born with birth defects. When those heroes of New York Police and Fire asked for medical care, the Army denied it. When they tried to sue it, they came up and said, you can't sue us, you have no standing because of Paris Doctrine. In other words, you guys are out of luck. In other words, you're just going to have to walk away, ignore your medical care that we already require but we don't provide you, and just, so sorry about your children. We really don't care.
Well, I can't even look at this. I mean, I was talking about mainstream news articles showing the deformed children. They went and found a news site, Mindfully, that I'm aware of, and I couldn't even look at it. I mean, And then I mean, I remember back after the first Gulf War, the cover of Life books, Life magazine, was admitting the DU was causing deformities, and it showed the deformed U.S. kids. I mean,
it's all been there for years, and you have to understand, every internal briefing we have, every report that we've ever had, thoroughly acknowledges it. When General Schwarzkopf was ordered, I have to repeat, the Pentagon leadership ordered General Schwarzkopf to find me and tell me to clean up depleted uranium during Desert Storm. So his chief of staff wrote the order, and, off I went again, but hey, being a career military and, lover of America and everything, okay, we'll go do it. And today, all of us are affected, but, I kind of come back and say, if I didn't do the work, nobody else would. What made the change is as I finished the work as the director of the U.S. Army Depleted Uranium Project, what ended up being not only for the U.S. Army, it ended up being for the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marines, but I also had a German officer, a Canadian officer, an Australian officer assigned to me. Okay? So we're working all together to get it all done, and we're acknowledging everything, finding all the problems, and I had the total realization after we did the research in the Nevada test site in Mercury, Nevada, you can't clean it up. There is no medical care. There is no way to protect everybody. And I came out and told them they can't ever use it again. Well, how fast do you become persona non grata when you tell somebody you can't use their favorite weapon?
How do we stop the use of this? How do we fight back?
Well, it's very simple. It is a war it's a crime against God and a crime against humanity. And we need to have those individuals accountable for whatever they do. Everybody is supposed to be trained. Everybody knows what the hazards are. The senior leadership totally disregards it. We need to restore order. We need to restore confidence in our nation. We need to go back to the Constitution and what's right under God, not what somebody needs to do to kill, destroy, to maim in order to seize terrain, resources, or control people. We have to go back to the fundamentals. What is right? What should we do? I mean, when we destroy a nation's infrastructure to release all these toxic chemical compounds, or we take all our trash, as we're doing in Iraq, and we burn it in open pits, resulting in incredible thousands and thousands of U.S. casualties who are denied care. This is called the toxic burn pit problem. You can read about it on ArmyTimes.com website or all over. We need to hold these people accountable and tell them enough is enough. I mean, if we have a viable threat and an enemy that's going to attack us, you have to understand, as a military guy, I'm going to be the first in the line to shoot the guy, okay? The real enemy. But we cannot continue to contaminate air, water, soil, and food, disregard the environmental contamination, thoroughly disregard the fact that we already ordered medical care for this and acknowledge it. But to the sick soldier or their family member or the civilian, we tell them, there's no problem. We can do what we want to do.
Well, it's our own troops. Even if people love killing Iraqi children or Serb children and think it's cute, I mean, this is our own troops we're doing this to. It wasn't acceptable until 1991. Why did it suddenly in the last 19 years become acceptable to engage in wars against humanity, crimes against humanity of mass murder? I mean, there's no doubt they know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I don't have the answers to that because, when I started yelling and screaming about it, they got very nasty. One thing we do know from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs report, and you've seen these, what they do is statistical analysis of the various casualties in the age groups and what's happening in war. With our Operation Iraqi Freedom, this matches Desert Storm. This matches 100% the New York police and fire that went into the World Trade Center, matches completely to the police and fire that went into the Pentagon on that day. We're looking at 12% infectious and parasitic diseases. We've got 1% absolute cancers. We've got 4% benign cancers. Endocrine, nutritional, metabolic problems at 23%. When we look at leukemias, we're looking at 3% leukemias among young kids, which never should have them. All of the
I've talked to a lot of medical doctors, Dr. Rokke, and they say that 30 years ago, finding a kid with cancer in a ward was like finding a leprechaun, it was incredibly rare. And that now it's just cancer everywhere. I mean, it's like, oh, yeah, kids just get cancer like they get the flu now.